So you want to write a pop punk song. Maybe you're like me and you grew up listening to, or are still listening to, bands like Green Day, Good Charlotte, Blink-182, Paramore, and every other band that played the Warped Tour at some point. Well, look no further, because today I'm going to break down the key steps and elements to writing a pop punk song with that nostalgic feel. Welcome to Punk Rock 101. Welcome back to Punk Rock 101. If you're new here, my name is AJ and my musical project is called Shakeout. On this channel, I post weekly videos of punk rock music and punk rock advice. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button. And if you could also hit the like button, it really does help get this thing out to a few more people. So let's get into writing a pop punk hit that will bring you back to the late 90s, early 2000s, and make you feel like you're at a Hot Topic figuring out which chain wallet to buy. Okay, so first things first, I want you to consider some artists that you want the song to be inspired by. And then, just like I did when I was 12 years old and learning how to play guitar, I want you to go and learn some of their songs. I spent pretty much all of my time from ages 11 to 14 learning every Green Day, Blink-182, Good Charlotte, and Sum 41 song that I could. Why? Because this is how you're going to understand how these songs are written and what they look like on a guitar neck, which will definitely help you create your own masterpiece of a song. All right, so now you went back, you learned the entire American Idiot album all the way through, and you feel like you could actively play in an emo night cover band. So let's get to writing our song. So for the sake of demonstrating, I'm actually going to use my song 2005 and break down the writing process to show you how to go about putting everything together. So for me, it usually starts with a guitar riff or just some chords. For this song in particular, I started with a guitar riff. So as I mentioned before, I start to think of bands that I really love and start to play some riffs like or, and then I just kind of noodle around until I find something that I like. This one actually might need a capo. And when I start to find ideas, I try to really solidify something until it kind of sticks. So now that I have this guitar riff, let's actually record it and use it to build out the rest of our song. So now that I have that tracked out, I actually have to find some chords that'll go along with it. And much like Derek Wimbley from Sum 41 said after he wrote the riff for Fat Lip, sometimes it can be tough to find the right chords that fit under your riff. So what I like to do is just loop the riff over and over and just play with some things until I find something I like. So what I did here was I actually just went off of the notes that I had in the first riff to find the chords. But honestly, if you jam around enough with your riff, you'll usually be able to find something that works. And then once you lay it down, you have an idea. So once we have a solid foundation for the idea, the next step in my process is to kind of figure out the structure of the whole song. What do I mean by this? I mean where the song goes from beginning to end. How does it start? What are the different sections of the song? And how does it end? Most of you already probably know that a general pop punk song is a chorus, couple verses, maybe a bridge, the usual sections of a song. But the way you structure these out is totally up to you. Different songs have different structures, which is why learning as many songs as possible is really important, because you get to figure out how your favorite band structure their songs. So to me, a solid structure of a song does a few key things. It has repetition of memorable moments in the song. In this instance, I'm actually going to use this riff as a memorable moment, and we call these moments hooks. And a lot of time people think of hooks as the vocals in the chorus, but it doesn't always mean that. Hooks can be guitar riffs, vocal lines, drum fills, basically anything memorable. It's important to sprinkle hooks in through the whole song and in all of the sections. So since I feel like this guitar riff could actually be part of a hook, I'm going to start the song with it and make it come back throughout the whole song. So in the beginning, I think I'm just going to have the guitar riff stand alone and then have the chords come in under it. And then after a few repetitions of that, we have an intro. So let's move into the verse. So for the verse, I want the guitar part to be somewhat similar to the intro, but still be able to stand alone as its own part. So generally, I would just let the metronome run, or you could even put in a basic drum beat to play along to, and just mess around with some chords until you find something you like. But for the pop punk stuff, especially if you want it to sound like those early 2000s bands, keeping it simple is the best way to go. So just 4 chords, nothing too flashy or jazzy. We'll focus on the vocal line to really carry all the catchiness. Okay, so now I have the general idea of the chords for the verse. They're really straightforward, like I said, so now let's just get to the hook. So I actually just want to go back to the original guitar riff with the chords under it and use that for the chorus of my song. As I play around with the chords from the verse, it's a little bit awkward to get back to the chorus just immediately. It feels like I need something to transition between those two parts. So we'll call this section the pre-chorus, and honestly, it doesn't have to be very long. Some of the greatest songs, like What's My Age Again by Blink-182, do a really great job of having short pre-choruses that just act as a way to get you from one part to another. And the way we're gonna do this is just by changing up the feel slightly. So instead of this kind of strummed out verse thing, I'm gonna make a really short riff that drives forward a little bit more, just so we can get to the next part. 2 measures, that's all that is. But it definitely helps me bring it to the place where the main riff can now come back. So now we're at the chorus, and we're just gonna reuse that main riff like I said before. So boom, a simple copy-paste job does the job here. Trust me, all your favorite bands do it. But since the lead is a little bit longer than the chords, because the chords came in halfway through the first part, I'm gonna change up the strumming pattern just a little bit for the second half to give it kind of a different feel, and then maybe down the line we'll also have the drums change it up a little bit too. Having those slight changes throughout the song is really important to kind of give the listener something a little bit new to listen to. But also not straying too far from the original idea, and the hook is also important. Also, just take note that this first chorus actually happens within the first 45 seconds of the song. Don't bore us, get us to the chorus. Get there as fast as you can in a pop punk song. It's important. All right, so now we have the chorus down. I think we've honestly repeated this hook enough times, so let's just jump right into the second verse. For the most part, I'd honestly just keep the guitar part exactly the same. Maybe just try changing a bass line or some drum fills to kind of give the second verse a little bit of a different feel when you get there. But all in all, the vocals should really be what drives this song, because we are writing a pop punk song. So I'm cool to just copy and paste in that second verse. But we do need that pre-chorus part again to get us back to the second chorus. So maybe for fun, we just change it up a little bit, but not too much. So let me just take the same part and make it twice as long. All right, so we made it to the second chorus. You know what that means? Copy and paste. We want this to be the part of the song that people remember, so there's really no point in overcomplicating it. Let's just use the same thing. All right, so now we're through the second chorus. Maybe introduce a new part, like a bridge. Here's what I personally think is a requirement here. You need to have a massive change in feel for this section so that it really sticks out. I know we haven't actually laid out any drums yet, but in my head for the whole song so far, I have the snare on like a 2 and 4 feel. You know the one. Or maybe even something like... So we want to make this part feel different from that. Maybe we could cut the time in half. So instead of... maybe more like a... If we do this correctly, it'll make the listener go from... to... You feel me? So for the sake of simplicity, I can't stress how important it is to keep nostalgic pop punk songs simple. I'm just going to use the same chords that I've been using throughout the whole song here. Maybe I'll just combine the chords from the verse and the chorus a little bit. All right, so I messed around with something, and I think I got something that kind of fits that halftime feel. Sounds pretty cool to me. So this part could either have vocals over it or be instrumental. In this song, since it is already an existing song, it actually has both. The first half has vocals, and the second half has a little bit of a guitar solo. But it's really up to you. Just make sure that it's not super long, because we do need to get back to, yeah, you guessed it, the chorus. All right, so here is my favorite part. We're just going to, boom, copy and paste. Like I said, we want this part to be the part that everybody remembers, so let's not overcomplicate things. Let's just make it happen again. And booyah, we have the entire structure of the song. So yes, of course, there are parts like drums and bass that you have to add, and you can mess around with all that stuff in your software now that you have a whole structure. But I think the most important part that'll make this song resonate like Dance Dance by Fall Out Boy did in 2006 is the vocal melodies and lyrics. So how I rate vocal melodies is I usually go from section to section in the song. And I usually just hum and use some doos or doo-doos and kind of just figure out what sounds catchy to me. So if we were to start with the verse, I would kind of just put it on loop and try some stuff out. Do 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 do, da 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 do do do, do 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 do. And I would just record it over and over again and just try different things every time until I could kind of just piece some things I like together. And when I do this, I always look for hooks. Even in the verse, I just want little melodies that I can repeat over and over again that will get stuck in people's heads. Like I said, a good song has constant hooks throughout it. And I'm not gonna bore you with this whole process. Just go through each part of the song, try some different melodies, and see what happens. And remember, it just takes time to piece some things together and figure out what you really like. So now comes the lyrics. I did say nostalgic pop punk, right? I went pretty literal with this song, and it was actually because I put a video out earlier this year and asked people what I should write a song about. And one of my TikTok followers left a comment, 2005. And I started to think about how that was the first year I started playing in a band. And then when I started looking up all the things that happened in 2005, like YouTube launching, MySpace and AIM dominating the internet, songs like Beverly Hills, Sugar We're Going Down, and Best of You topping the charts, I started thinking that I could write a lot about that year. So first things first, just figure out what you want to write about. If you want it to be reminiscent of these pop punk legends, then it probably should be something kind of relatable. But it also has to be real for you so that it's believable when you sing it. So what I did when I started writing this song was I jotted everything down that happened that year that was relatable to me. And then once I had a bunch of things written down, I just started trying to fit lyrics to the melodies that I had already written. Writing lyrics can be a super tough process. I know it is for me. That's why writing melodies first is really important to me, because you just have to fit words to something that you already know is gonna be catchy. But one big rule that most of the songs in this genre abide by is that the chorus should be the simplest part. Less words is a good thing. It gives something people can just kind of easily sing along with. But anyway, after you've spent hours, maybe days, coming up with the words to your song, you might have something like this.
2005, golden age where we thrive. How the time flies. Start up the rest of our lives. Got another confession to make. That's where I want to be. No way to feel good on a bad day. Dropped hearts and broken names.
I know we didn't cover everything, but I think these were the essential starter tips for writing your own nostalgic pop punk song. If you want to hear the rest of this song, check it out on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you stream your music. I'll link it below. And please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video if you enjoyed it, because these videos are weekly. So I'll see you next week.